Hey guys, so I just wanted to do a video on how to do applique in the Singer Futura embroidery software. I couldn't find a good video on this online, so I just wanted to make one since I was able to figure out how to do it, and it's pretty easy. The way I figured it out is I found the manual for the software online, and I'm going to link it down below in the description. It makes it very straightforward to use. I didn't know there was a manual because I got this secondhand, but definitely search the manual if you don't have it. It makes everything so much easier. But anyway, I'm going to show you guys how to do this. The first thing you want to do is open your design. This is a design I made through the Auto Punch software, but it doesn't have to be through Auto Punch. Obviously, it can be any design. So I just want the 4 and the 1 and the 4 to be appliqued. So I'm just gonna go up here, make sure this is selected, outline edit option. So just make sure that's highlighted. Click on whatever you want to be appliqued. So I just selected the 1. So it should be outlined, and then right click and then go down to embroidery settings. So when you click that, this option should come up. It's probably going to open up here in the settings menu. So if it does, just click on stitch type, and applique is all the way at the bottom. So just select that. And then it gives you these options. All of these options are explained in the manual, so if you're not sure what those are, you can always refer to the manual, and I'll quickly explain them as well. So I'm just gonna start down here because this is the one that actually stitches first. So if you have this selected, that's basically an initial stitch on, not on the fabric that's getting appliqued, but that's the stitch that goes down before you put the applique fabric on. So this is just a running stitch that goes on the original fabric. So I did this on a t-shirt, and what I did is I didn't put the fabric for the 1 or the 4 down. First I let my machine stitch out the running stitch, so I knew where to put the fabric. After it did that, I took I cut out my fabric, put it over the area where it was stitched, and then because I had first hold down line selected, it basically stitched that same shape of the 1 again in a running stitch, and that's the stitch that will attach your fabric to the piece of fabric on the bottom. So I would recommend doing that. Once the first hold down running stitch is complete, I stopped my machine, took it out of I took the hoop out of the machine, and then I cut the fabric really close to that running stitch. And I recommend you do it as close as possible to the running stitch, because some areas I didn't do it as close because I was afraid that I would kind of cut into the running stitch. I would recommend that you not be too afraid of that, because you're going to sew the applique on right away, so you don't really have to be too worried about the running stitch coming out. I wish I had done that. Like I said, some areas I left a little thicker just because I was too afraid to cut too close to the running stitch. But then once the applique was put down, those little pieces of fabric were coming out past the applique, and it makes the applique look a little sloppy. So after the first hold down line, cut all of the excess fabric that you don't need along the outside of the running stitch, and cut it as close to the running stitch as you can. So once you do that, put it back in your embroidery machine, and then if you have this selected, it's going to run it's going to run this next. So the second hold down line, that's basically another stitch that helps the fabric stay in place. I had that selected. I wish I didn't have it selected. It's not a regular running stitch. I think it's called an E-stitch, and basically it ended up showing through even after the applique was done, which I think made the applique look a little sloppy. So unless you really need that extra support before you do your applique, I probably wouldn't recommend this. If you do this second hold down line, I'm not sure if making the width of your applique would help, but that was just my experience. So I wouldn't use this unless you feel like you really need it, because for me it ended up being it ended up showing through after. That might have been my fault. I'm not like an expert in embroidery, so if you know, a lot of you probably know even more than I do about this. So that's just my experience. And so after those stitches, next is the overlock stitch. So the overlock stitch is what makes the applique applique. It's the satin stitch that goes around the edge of your object. So obviously if you're doing applique, you always want this to be selected, because if you're in the applique option, unless you just really want a stitch to be there to hold down a piece of fabric, you always do want this selected, or else you're not really doing you're not really doing applique at that point. So so just have that selected. And like I said, I'm very new to this, so if I said anything incorrectly, please let me know in the comments down below. I definitely don't know everything, and I know a lot of you guys have a lot of experience. And also, I think I mentioned this in the beginning of the video, I will be linking the manual down below, and it's so helpful. It has basically a summary of what the applique is, and then it explains all of these options down here, which is how I was able to figure out how to do the applique. This manual is really helpful if you never used the program before. It's what I've been referring to kind of help me get the designs the way I want them to look. And so that's pretty much it for the applique. When you're done, when you have everything the way you want it, you can just click apply, and it's going to do this. I know it looks like it's still all black, but it looks like it's completely filled in and stuff, but there is an applique on it. And I think this area, that they put those like diagonal lines there to show that you're supposed to put a fabric down. Redraw design. Oh, by the way, if you want to do the redraw design, just make sure you unselect this. So just unselect it, or else it won't let you do the redraw design. So let's just kind of skip to the end so we can see what it looks like. See? So this is what it's going to look like when it's stitched out. For some reason on the actual preview, it does have this all filled in black, but I think those diagonal lines that you saw before are just supposed to symbolize that it is supposed to be fabric, not an actual stitch. And you see this one, I didn't do the applique on it, so it kind of has this pattern here, which symbolizes a fill stitch. I like the idea of doing applique so you don't have to kind of waste all of that thread doing a fill stitch, and I think it looks really nice too. And I also wanted to mention some of the other options in there. So that's pretty much it for the applique. I just wanted to show you guys another little thing that I thought was really cool, and I didn't know this before. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to select the outline edit, select my object, embroidery settings, stitch type, And notice all of these other options. So Appliqué is a good option, which we went over, but there's also so many other things that you can do in here. So if you're looking for a specific pattern or a specific texture, experiment with this. They also have motifs, which I think is really cool. And then if you click on catalog, it gives you different kinds of motifs you can choose. And there are so many to choose from. I'm just gonna select this just to see what it looks like. And let me zoom in. So that's how it came out. So I thought that was really cool. I think it's a good way of putting down a shape without having to fill in the whole entire shape, which obviously uses a lot less thread. It's a lot faster, and I think it looks pretty cool. You can get really creative with it. Anyway, so I just wanted to add that because I thought it was like a really cool feature. I hope this helped you guys. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. I'm always trying to learn new things about this program, and thanks for watching. If it helped you, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And if you want any other videos, please let me know. Thanks again, guys. Bye.